Now to our very first story. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana has cited threats to inflation and economic growth for maintaining the policy rate at 16%. This is the first time this year and the sixth this last year. Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Ernest Addison, announced it at a press conference earlier in the day.
The external sector performance continued to remain strong, with an improved trade surplus for the third consecutive year. This contributed to further narrowing of the current account deficit and supported additional reserve buildup of $1.3 billion. This should provide strong buffers to withstand shocks and ensure stability in the foreign exchange market. Fiscal policy has been a source of considerable stimulus. The 2019 budget execution was broadly in line with expectations, with the budget deficit outturn almost on target and within the fiscal rule of 5% of GDP. While acknowledging that there are electoral cycle fiscal risks, strong commitment by the fiscal authorities to stay on the consolidation path should help sustain the stability and growth achieved over the past 3 years. Overall, the economy presents fairly resilient and robust performance with regards to output growth and a strong trade and payments position. The economy is positioned firmly on the path of stability, with inflation forecasted to stay within the medium-term target band of 8 ± 2%, bearing any unanticipated shocks. Under these circumstances, the committees viewed risks to the inflation and growth outlook as broadly balanced and therefore decided to keep the monetary policy rate unchanged at 16%, while standing ready to take decisive policy actions when necessary to ensure that inflation remains within the target band. Thank you.
Meanwhile, banking consultant Nana Otue Champon tells Joy Business the move is in the right direction.
In fact, I have always maintained that the rate decision is dependent on those who have access to the books. So although today you saw that all the indicators were positive, but still at the back of their mind are the uncertainties presently creeping into the world. This Chinese issue is something that, if you listen to the news, people who go to China and so on, now they can't go, and there's a shutdown in most cities in China. So I think you have to be cautious to ensure that it doesn't derail the positive things that have been achieved. So I'm not surprised that it was maintained.
But some say if you look at the economy, there have been some positive development as well. If you look at the global economy as well, other Federal Reserve have all cut down their rate in trying to stimulate growth. Don't you also think that then you get the impression that the Bank of Ghana knows something that we don't know in terms of the economy, and that's why they're also being cautious with respect to doing things that could derail the gains that we've made?
Not at all. Not that I don't think they know something that we don't know, because what they know is what they have told us. And as I said, all they've been saying are the positive things. But this single virus issue is something that nobody can turn a blind eye to, because all the indications were that if it hadn't been that, I'm sure there would have been a rate cut, you know. So on that basis, let's give him credit for what he has done.
Another thing that the governor spoke about was some meetings with the banks, and he's gotten some positive response in terms of trying to lower the cost of credit using his or the bank's moral suasion. I thought that we were in the era of forces of demand and supply. Aren't we getting back to that era of kind of controlled rates if moral suasion is being used to kind of compel banks to drive down their rates?
Yeah. Moral suasion is the opposite of the compulsion system which Kenya, for instance, introduced. So although you can appeal to them, they don't have to take it. So, because the appeal to them has been going on for quite a while. Some of them are presently lending even below MPC rate, you know. So it depends on the quality of the borrower.
Now, President of the Ghana Indian Trade Association, Dominic Odro, has been explaining to Joy Business the importance of the Indian Foundation to business growth.
We realize that our youth, there are a lot of issues with the youth. Now, the chorus we are saying is that the youth are the future leaders, But the issue is, what are we doing that will help them to become future leaders? So we launched GETAC Foundation that is going to take care of education. We're going to look into scholarships for people. We're also talking about agribusiness. And you realize that most of the graduates from the universities, when they do agric, when they study agric, when they are done, what next? Either they leave that sector and go and look for another job to do. So the foundation is there to address all these issues. And we're talking about healthcare, especially mother and child, and people with, kidney issues here and there that they cannot be able to fund. We're putting this foundation together where we can also help people with issues like this, to travel to India or any other country, to help solve these problems. So these are the basic things that we wanted to bring to the notice of the public,
The second edition of the Ghana Customer Service Index has been launched in Accra. The index, which chronicled 9 key sectors and how they performed with regards to customer service satisfaction, saw the retail sector come first, with the public sector taking the last spot in the ranking. On the business edition of PM Express on Thursday, Joy Business's Philip Namfuri and his guests explored some aspects of the index. Here's a report.
Customer service forms an integral part of businesses the world over. Individuals are the providers of the service. Attitude is a big component of a human-centered activity or business. What can we learn about the attitude and customer satisfaction? The president of the Institute of Customer Service Professionals, Yvonne Ohui-McCarthy, tells us more.
I think for me, 3-4 months ago, I used to say that we had 2 problems in our customer service area. And if you remember our last interview, true. I mentioned 2. Now I've added a 3rd one because I think that's also a problem. I felt that the skill set gap was there and then the mindset gap was there. But now I feel that the lack of ownership mentality has added to it, and that's basically an attitude problem, where people don't care about the business that they work for. Because if you care about the business you work for, you'd wake up early, you'd be bothered if you're going to be late. When you get to work, you not do things like using your phone, going for funerals for a week and all that. So we lack the ownership mentality. And really and truly, when you look through the index, if you look at the last 2, or even the last 3, utilities, telcos, and public sector, when you walk into, and I'm sorry it sounds like sometimes we're bashing the public sector, but this is real life. When you walk into any of these public sector institutions, you feel the attitude.
But businesses and individuals know the right steps they must take to succeed. But why can't we make it work? Prof. Hinson is a lecturer with the Department of Entrepreneurship and Marketing at the University of Ghana Business School. He gives some insights.
This issue of cost cutting is a big cost cutting. Look, I'm sure you've heard the English idiom that you don't cut your nose to spite your face, which basically means that you don't cut costs to the extent that all your tellers are outsourced. They are molesting all your customers. You are getting bad press. The name of the bank is being dragged in the mud. And you are still focusing on saying that full-timers will cost more. What are you doing? Because it will get to a point where the situation will not be tenable anymore and the business might shut down. Yeah. So we must always have a fine balance between managing cost and still delivering service excellence.
It is clear that the customer is indeed essential to any institution, and customer-focused strategies and solutions are important.
Now, over 15 youth from Apiedu in the Oforikrom constituency in the Ashanti region have been enrolled onto a training and entrepreneurial initiative aimed at reducing unemployment. The community-based program, which identifies and develops potential of beneficiaries, is spearheaded by Member of Parliament for the area, Dr. Emmanuel Mafo. Nana Sensu-Mensah has more in this report.
Now, according to the UN, 72% of young people in Africa between the ages of 15 and 24 live below the $2 a day poverty line. For many of them, lack of skills necessary to guarantee them jobs or self-employment has been the reasons. Lack of funds to set up after learning a trade has been a major challenge for some youth. For beneficiaries of the MP Entrepreneurship Program, all the factors of production are taken care of in the package. Gladys Mensah is supervisor at the project's dressmaking center.
Gladys Mensah. Is here Juma Pomme and a Dr. Mafo, Oforikrom MP.
My name is Gladys Mensah. After I completed my apprenticeship, I didn't have money to set up my shop and start my business. I met Dr. Emmanuel Mafo, who asked me to supervise his dressmaking initiative program. My apprentices and I are very happy for such opportunity given us.
Dr. Emmanuel Mafo is confident apprenticeship will shift youth out of wage work into self-employment.
The initiative is to help solve youth unemployment in this country, which is a major problem facing this country. And the concept that we are using under this MP's entrepreneurship initiative is to organize young women and young men, give them an opportunity to learn a skill or trade in classes. So, for example, in this project, we are just bringing these young women to come and learn a trade. We also offer an opportunity for somebody who has finished learning the trade already and needs support or a startup capital. So we are killing two birds with a stone. We are giving somebody who has already learned a trade the opportunity to start up his business, and then giving those who don't have money to also have the opportunity to learn the trade.
With funding from the MP's Common Fund, the entrepreneurship program will be extended in clusters across the Oforikrom constituency.
So under the MP's Common Fund, I'm initiating this entrepreneurship program, and what I'm doing is that I'm going to organize this in clusters in all the electoral areas, so that the beneficiaries will not have to pay money or spend money on TNT. So each area will have its own cluster, and the initiative, some may be dressmaking, some may be hair dressing, some may be hair cutting or barbering, depending on the needs of most of the youth who are unemployed and those who haven't gone to school. We will fashion the program depending on the need.
Nana Sensu-Mensah's report for JoyNews.
Now, Invest in Africa Ghana, an NGO with a portfolio of over 2,000 SMEs, says the support services sector led in a number of businesses that survived and made some gains in 2019. Some of these companies will pick up various awards in 9 categories tonight at the IIA Awards here in Accra. Country Director Clarence Nate is optimistic a virtual platform with over 5,000 multinationals across Africa will open up opportunities for small-scale businesses to access other markets beyond Ghana.
Access to markets, access to skills, and access to finance. These are some of the major challenges SMEs across Africa face. So we are working with partners, both in the private sector mainly, but also quasi-government as well as DFI institutions to be able to provide a necessary intervention to level the playing field for SMEs in order to make them more competitive. So we celebrate that entrepreneurial excellence, both at an organizational level and at an individual level. This year, what you'll find is that, because I think it's a well-known fact that 2019 was a very difficult year. And in a way, it reflects in the submissions. in one sense, because when I say that, what I mean is if you look at the kind of performance, the business performance of the SMEs in 2019 versus the previous year, you see stronger growth in 2018 than 2019, which should not surprise many because of the challenges. But the great thing is that we still have a lot of SMEs who, in spite of the difficult environment, are still registering strong growth, which means that these are resilient SMEs, very resourceful, and probably will find a lot of creative and innovative ways to still be growing at these sort of extraordinary rates. So, and I think in a sense, I'm glad that we have that opportunity to reward such excellence in very turbulent and volatile times.
Why would these SMEs, or how did these SMEs survive? Did they survive on innovation, technology, and should this kind of thing be what should send the ripple effect into the whole of the SME economy?
Well, what we found, at least with the SMEs that are doing well, is that these are SMEs who have always at the beginning had a long view in terms of clear business plan in place, have sort of also got a good gauge on some of their forecasting, and have sort of anticipated through risk management identity.
So the third IIA Awards comes off at the Accra International Conference Center this evening at 6 p.m. Away from that, Ghana has joined the new transit monitoring system expected to be implemented by countries in the West African sub-region to help prevent diversion of transit goods. The new system, which is expected in March this year, will boost efficiency of customs officials in member countries. Commissioner of Customs Colonel Koyudamwa disclosed this to Joy Business after a short ceremony to take over a facility built by the Danish government to enhance security at the country's entry points.
The Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority recorded more than 90% efficiency in transit goods at the country's port in 2019. This result is expected to increase this year, which, according to the Commissioner of Customs, Kojo Damoa, is due to the deployment of technology. The facility presented by the Danish government is expected to support its operations at the entry points. The Commissioner, in an interview, told Joy Business that Ghana will be joining other West African nations to implement the new system at the ports that will ensure maximum revenues derived from goods in transit.
And for now, before the end of the year, you mentioned specifically transit. In the case of transit, we were, as of December, operating around 98.5% of efficiency, which means that if there are any risks of losing something out of transit, it is now less than 2%. And that's, we are trying to make sure that we have 100% guarantee of all transit leaving our country and safely arriving in the destination countries. Now, there is also some good news. At the ECOWAS level, a new system has been developed, and it is going to be rolled out by all ECOWAS countries. And that system has a specific model for transit. And what that seeks to do is that the landlocked countries and then the countries along the coast having the port facilities are all going to be hooked on this. So as soon as a declaration is made, a transit movement, the vehicle and everything is done, straight away, automatically, all the countries hooked to that system are aware of the movement of this consignment.
Deputy Head of Mission at the Danish Embassy pledged support to improve upon Ghana's revenue collection.
We are so keen to see that the transition from aid towards a trade-based relationship with your core partners will be successful, and that you will be successful in raising your internal revenue capacity to the level to be able to sort of sustain the ambitions of your government and your people. I think that's a shared interest, and we'll continue to be a partner of yours, even though we are not continuing with this particular project.
The facility will be used by the K9 units of the Ghana Revenue Authority for operations at the Kotoka International Airport. Ebenezer Sabote's report for Joy Business.
And that's all we have for you tonight on Business Live. Many thanks for your company. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. We are here for more business news. Log on to myjoyonline.com/business. Have a great weekend.